if resources are not adequately and properly allocated, obviously it will result in a lot of waste. I also know that because we are talking about data today, for me, no one would survive in this time unless we are deliberate about mining our data, because our data is always speaking to us as much as possible. And when we talk about data mining, I don't like people to think you need to be a techie guy to be able to actually get all of that sorted. I personally believe that just looking at the basic information that is required in running our businesses day to day, paying attention to what our ARP is actually documenting for us, we can actually do a lot. We can actually generate a lot of insights from those data that we are getting as much as possible. Then, of course, we have to learn to develop strategic partnerships as much as possible along the entire value chain of our businesses. We just have to ensure that we are strategic in building those partnerships. I think it's also important that we should understand that in the heart of the healthcare business is actually the patient. And one fundamental challenge that we all fail to pay attention to is that patient, the patient that we are all actually trying to serve. The more attention we pay to the patient, the more likely they are going to take us very, very seriously. And as much as possible, we would remain highly competitive, irrespective of the challenges that could come up based on the realities of the economy as much as possible. I think I can stop there. I don't know how much time I have. I don't want to keep going on and on and on. Yeah, yeah.
That was quite robust. Famchima, do you have any additions to make to that?
I mean, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Renee, for putting me on this webinar. And so the only thing that catches my attention is the technology part. And I mean, that's what I drive, because we keep talking about data. There should be a way to actually capture those data. And I'm sure Fam Taufik mentioned ERP. So ERP means enterprise resource planning, or whatever tool you use to manage your customers and your inventory and everything in your business. So that's the part. And I know some pharmacies are not big on asking those questions, because a full business manager is the man that knows his business. When you ask simple questions, you already know the answers, and those things can be tracked with your digital tools so that you have answers and you can make quick decisions, especially in the face of rare opportunities that it presents to you. You know whether you need them or not. So I think that's the only part I have to contribute about the digital tool.
Yeah. Thank you, Famchima. All right, so Famumi, this question is for you, Famumi. Thank you once again for joining in. So I'd like to know what key indicators or metrics should healthcare business owners monitor closely to assess the financial health of their businesses, especially during periods of economic instability, and how can data analytics help in this regard?
All right, thank you very much. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, beautiful. And thank you once again for inviting me to this webinar. So getting straight to it, I'll start with what most business owners would usually track. Usually in many businesses, we just track our revenue. You're looking at how much sales do we make today versus how much sales did we make yesterday. And although that is good, that sadly is grossly inadequate. As a business owner, yes, you want to look at your revenues. You also want to look at what are your revenue lines? What is bringing that revenue? If you have different streams of income, how are they contributing to the overall top line? Then you want to look at your cost of goods, your cost of service. What percentage of your revenue is your cost of goods? If your cost of goods is taking a very high proportion of your revenue, you want to look into that. It could be that you are buying from a very wrong source, or you need to maybe negotiate. Taufik talked about developing strategic partnership, and so that's where this data will help you. After that, you want to look at your gross profit. Now, as beautiful as revenue is, your revenue is not what pays your bills, right? If a business is making maybe 100 million and has a gross profit of 20 million, the 100 million is not paying the bills. So your gross profit is what pays your bills. So you want to look at your gross profit. What percentage of your revenue is your gross profit? And that's very critical. Now, in looking at your gross profits, you're also looking at your OPEX. In this time and day, you want to look where's your cost coming from? What are your cost drivers? Is it salary? Rent? Is it the regular day-to-day light diesel? We know what diesel is doing to us right now. For those of us who are in band A, I feel for you, right? Because if you can imagine what that component has done to your OPEX. So you want to look at your OPEX, right? How is it impacting on your gross profit? And then after doing that, one of the things we learned I actually have 3 alumni of Lagos Business School here. One of the things you learn in business school is you want to look at your EBITDA. What is the portion of your finances that is from your operation? So if you're in retail, you're into buying and selling, how much of your buying and selling has yielded profits, right? Before you bring in revenue from any of your financial services. So you're looking at that, and you're looking at your net profit. Very important. So that's some matrices you need to track. Another thing I always will say is look at your trend. What were we doing same time last year? What were we doing same time last month? At EXC, we also look at what were you doing same time last week. Sometimes I go down and say, as at this date last month, what were we doing, right? And you want to dig deep, right? Are we growing? Are we declining? So what is your trend saying? So you're looking at your trend analysis. For those of us who take loans from banks, there are some ratios you want to track. If a bank should pick up on that and say, you know what, I'm not doing it again, pay me all my money. Are you able to pay that money immediately? So these are some financial ratios and numbers you need to look at. And so the second part of the question, how will data help you? Many times, a lot of us use softwares, but we just use the softwares for buying and selling. Your softwares give you a lot of information. So like Taufik said, how well are you mining your information? I'll give you a story that happened to us. And I think that was in 2020 when we first had somebody in our inventory department. And he was turning everything around. So when you buy a pack of Panadol, he will put pack price as sachet price and sachet price as pack price. And so you're looking at your data, you see that your revenue is high, but your gross profit is almost negative. And I kept saying, this is impossible. What's going on, right? But because we're able to look at it and look at the data properly, we saw that these were the mistakes he was making. And of course, it took us a while, but we were able to correct it. So you can only get most of this information from your data. So how well are you looking at your data? How well are you understanding the story your data is telling you? I hope this helps and wasn't too technical for me.
No, that really helps. I'm sure that the audience and our attendees are at this point they've left everything else that they are doing. No distractions anymore. Their ears at the screen. Thank you very much, Famumi, for that. I think we have polls on the screen, so please interact with the polls and survey and just feel how you heard about this webinar so that, to help with our data too, so that we can also make data-driven decisions. Thank you very much. So I don't know, Taufik, do you have anything to add to the metrics that healthcare business owners should measure?
Yes, I think Pharmacist Wumi has done a fantastic job, but let me just point into one or two areas. I know she wasn't selfish. She didn't want to finish everything so that some of us can add to it. So data analytics can actually help us a lot. And I think she gave us a lot about how we can actually track and identify patterns and all of that. I want us to also realize that we need, when we can use data analytics to actually evaluate the effectiveness of our financial strategies. Whether our strategies is working or not, the data, if properly looked into, can actually show us all of that. Then beyond that too, data can be used significantly for cost reduction and improve efficiency a lot. There's no way we'll continue to talk about that for me, that I will not continue to tell people that if you sit back, there's no amount of investment you put in gathering your data that can be a waste of resources for you. Because if you just pay attention to your data alone, it can actually improve your efficiency significantly. And that means you can be actualizing a lot more with little resources. Then in the area of revenue and expenses, if you track your data well, I regularly teach budgeting, not just in Vanguard, but in a lot of places. And I tell people that the whole idea of documenting and tracking is for us to be able to do predictive analytics into the future. And, I remember clearly when we had the crisis in Ukraine and the cost of diesel moved from about 200 naira to almost 1,900 naira. What I saw a lot of businesses do was to run away from using energy. A lot of them stopped putting on lighting in their spaces and all of that because people were not paying attention into data. But just going back and analyzing your data, you can see your OPEX clearly and see where your expense lines are. And by that, you can actually do a predictive analytics. Okay, with the new costs of this thing, if we continue on this path for another few months, what are we likely going to end the year with? Seeing that means that you can now come back and look at other areas in your business and see, instead of doing cost cutting, you can actually do cost reduction. And the difference is just that cost cutting is a knee-jerk reaction, whereas cost reduction has to do with adequate planning and you understanding your business holistically. And because of that, you're able to say, okay, we keep our lighting on, but we will go to XYZ in our budget and take away some of those other things that are important, but not obviously necessary. And so for me, data analytics can help significantly in doing a lot of forecasting around revenue and expenses, and it will eventually seep down into the kind of strategies we are adopting in our business environment as much as possible. And I think every business will benefit from analyzing their data and paying a lot of attention into data analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Fam Taufik. So Fam Chima, this question is for you. What are some practical strategies or best practices for integrating data insights into everyday decision-making processes within healthcare organizations? And then how can they be implemented effectively across different roles? So that's two questions. Let me allow you answer the first one. Okay, so what are some practical strategies for integrating data insights into everyday decision-making processes?
Okay, so thank you from Onye. So I mean, I would so from Taufik and from Omaomi have stated some of their inputs based on pharmacy as a business manager, financial manager. Now I'm going to, for these practical steps, I'm going to be allowing you see your pharmacy as a business with different entities, and I'll start with the procurement part. Your pharmacy having a sales function, and your pharmacy having a marketing function. And interestingly, those are some of the things that the data you collate you can improve on. And if you see, I know Vanguard Pharmacy and AXC, Like those are pharmacies I've been to, and I know they do a lot of these things. Visiting them and engaging with their staff, they do a lot of this input, this improvement. So now, when it comes to the data you collect, I'll give you a practical example. The data can be even with respect to footfall. I know a couple of retail businesses, by virtue of what I've studied in the past, I know a couple of retail businesses that they count footfall. So imagine you collect such data and you notice your footfall is falling. That means that the thing you should be addressing at that moment is how to, reach out, some sort of marketing campaign. If they have association of landlords going on there, you just come up with something and devise something which so you increase the footfall, and that's for a marketing function. For a sales function, customer management, you could do something like when you collect data and you're seeing the average purchase, the average basket size is falling. You can do things like augmenting, because the person is reducing what is buying. You can do things like identifying the product that are not as expensive as maybe the premium product, so you can still offer a range of product the person is buying. And that way you're advising your salespeople, because there should be upskilling both from external trainers and internal trainers. So you can talk to your salespeople, weekly, and tell them this is the strategy for this week, that the ranges of products should be large because they're not buying, and because they cannot buy a particular product they're familiar, that's popular. You can introduce a newer brand to them so that they continue to increase the value of their basket size. And with regards to procurement, when you also see when you look at your data and you see what your top line revenue for the month, you can use it to plan your procurement for the next month, such that even your fastest moving or the therapeutic alternative or substitute they are buying, you can focus more on it and just prioritize those as the more units you buy. So those are some of the ways you can use to affect your pharmacy operations based on the data you're getting. So you divide your operations into 4: procurement, sales, marketing, and maybe disease management or customer management. Then you continue to filter in data to the minutest form, not only regarding to financials, and you begin to improve on some of these functions and get your results for the business. I don't know if that captures all the answers.
Yeah. Yes, it does. I mean, it's even captured the second part about roles and departments. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Famchima. Famumi, do you want to add anything to this?
Okay, I think one thing I would say is how, speaking to the first question of how your data can help in your everyday life. I want to give something that happened at EXA a couple of years ago. And it was through our data we realized that a staff was involved in a conflict of interest, right? So what happened, because we usually look at data, we realized that the sale of supplements had nosedived. And I was always just telling this particular brand that supplement sales have dropped. But initially they kept saying that overall, in terms of revenue, the branch was growing. But when you churn down to different departments, you realize that you're looking at the trend, supplements have dropped. And I kept asking why. And so, of course, this spurred the members of that branch to go in and look into it. And then we realized that we had a then staff who had registered with one of these multi-level marketing companies and had access to their products. So when clients come in, rather than buying from the store, right, she found a way of diverting it. Now, if we had not looked at our data, right, and understood what the data was, we wouldn't have even known something like that was happening. Right? So this is how the data can actually help you understand some things going on in your business.
Thank you, Famumi. That was quite insightful. I mean, it's interesting how you can actually analyze data for each of the, classifications of medicines, like different categories. hypertensives, antihypertensives, antimalarials, and then you just zone in on what's going on in all of those spaces. Thank you very much for that. And I'm going to come back to Farm Taufik. So Farm Taufik, you've mentioned something about cost saving, cost reduction at some point. So I'd like to know, in what ways can healthcare businesses leverage insights from data to identify cost-saving opportunities and also optimize resource allocation without compromising the quality of patient care? Pantofik, did you get that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Can you please come again? I didn't. I think something with the network.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah, I was referring to earlier when you said something about cost saving, cost reductions, and all of that. So I was asking that, in what ways can healthcare businesses leverage insights from data to identify cost saving opportunities and optimize resource allocations without compromising quality of patient care?
Okay. I get you now. There are quite a few things that can be done really along that, and the fact that we said that without compromising the quality of patient care, for me, it's very, very important. And I'll say that we have to truly be intentional really all the way. Some of the primary challenges all of us will usually have, especially when you get new people on your team, is to actually believe that data does not lie. For me, that line is very, very important. Data is always talking to us. So once we believe that data does not lie, then it can actually help us into following through on all the defined details. And I'll say that for us to be able to leverage on the insights, we must, one, be intentional in analyzing utilization patterns. That means that we have to be able to identify areas of high resource utilization, and we must then optimize staffing and our supply chain into those areas. Let me try and bring that to life by saying that in our inventory, for example, a lot of us will know that Pareto's principle always come into play. And Pareto principle says the 80-20 rule. That means that just about 20% of our inventory will contribute about 80% of our sales. And as much as possible, when we are trying to do a lot of that, allocating resources also has to be intentional, believing that that is actually true. And we must be able to allocate resources appropriately based on those fundamental principles that the data is actually telling us. But from experience, what you see people do is that people just want to put their resources all across the board. And at the end of the day, patients' care would be impacted because what your patients are actually asking for is not where you are allocating their resources as much as possible. Then for streamlining clinical workflows, it is also important that we can use data to identify inefficiencies and streamline clinical workflows. And I will give another practical example into that in a pharmacy space. We all know what our peak periods are like. If you leave your team to actually allocate the human resources, everybody wants to do morning shift, whereas the bulk of the footfalls, because we don't just do footfall count, we do footfall count on every hour. So we could tell you that around so period of the day, we have our highest footfalls between a time this and time this. And because of that, it is very easy for us to understand that we allocate human resources into those peak periods, and are also ready and available to actually do a lot of work. And that is saying that we can actually use all of that to optimize staffing schedule. Then around inventory and supply chain management, we can actually use data to optimize supply chain management. I think I mentioned that earlier too. It simply means that someone is paying critical attention into what the data around supply chain is saying. And as a result of that, you're able to reduce waste. And obviously, once we can reduce waste, a lot of us knows that our huge resources actually goes into inventory management as much as possible. And so we can have a lot of headway if we actually allocate, we use that to improve the supply chain management as much as possible. I think I can also speak about medication management too. If we can use our data to optimize medication management, and we can improve the patient outcome as much as possible. And if we pay attention to all of these, we can actually use those data to go back and advise the prescriber, and also use similar information to advise the patient as much as possible. Can I think of one other way, or you want me to just stop here?
Okay, topic. If you remember at any point, we can come back to you.
Yeah. Okay. All yeah, right. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So I think what you said is really important about, first of all, knowing where to allocate the resources. So when you have insights from a particular data source, or like a revenue source, it guides you better on where to allocate resources. Yes, so important. All the while not compromising patient care. Because, well, to be frank, at the heart of everything is patient care. When you
obviously,
yeah, so when you're in I've done community practice before, and I know that at a particular time, patients come to you for cold. I think we're entering the season, so at once that you should stock up on cold. Like, that is like a no-brainer for pharmacists in their house. We should start stocking up on cold. That is also not compromising patient care. That is also like aligning with what patients are coming on with at the time. So it just aligns. Once you look critically at your data, you see it just tells you stories. Like Famumi said, one of our favorite quotes, what story is your data telling you? When you look critically at it, you just see the pattern. You just see something there. Thank you very much, Fam Taufik. Famumi, I'm coming back to you. Can you share any examples or case studies where you successfully leverage data in your business, and what lessons can everybody on the call learn from this?
Okay. I have two stories. I'll talk about the first one. Last year, we for the first time copied a strategy from Vanguard, which was being deliberate about Black Friday. And so we had a Black Friday event at EX at our main branch. Now, as part of that event, we all know what happens around Black Friday, where people tend to get products at discounted rates. So one of the strategies we did was we reached out to, we first and foremost looked at the data for our refill clients, which is majorly clients who are on chronic medication. And then because we usually would sell to client names, and then we have a way of tracking these people and then reminding them when it's time to take their medication. So we looked at it, and then we devised a strategy in the team to say, okay, for these people who are on this medication, right, let's reach out to them to kind of like do a bulk procurement maybe for the quarter and all that, so that of course it will help them in cost reduction in buying that, right? And so of course we used that, and it worked. We had a target for the Black Friday. This and many of the strategies we put into place. As at the end of that day, we exceeded our target by 150%. Right, and so this is one story of how we had use data to get a successful result. Second one is this year. So one of the things we had done this year, and which we usually try to do, is strategic about our relationships with our vendors and our different partners. And we went into that kind of conversation with drugstore, looking at our data over last year to say, okay, what are our top 20% that we must have. And looking at that data, we realized that okay, there are certain products that we can never run out of. And so we were very deliberate about that, came up with a strategy on how we wanted to procure them, and then came into a meeting with the supply chain team from Drugstock. Now, because we had used that data, it helped us. And so at the beginning of the year, we had certain products that we looked at our data, we looked at how those products return, and we were able to procure a good number of them. When this happened just before we had that crazy inflation, where prices were just skyrocketing anyhow. Because we had done that, it helped us stem that inflation. So for some of our clients, they were able to get this product from us at very good rates. We also had a scenario with when we know of this company that has suddenly left, Sanofi, and we used a lot of their products. We used a lot of their Dalneal, and because we realized that with Dalneal leaving the market, we needed to be able to replace this. But we needed to have the right data in sourcing for an alternative. And so we looked at our run rate of these products across all the branches, and we were able to now approach a second company, and then that helped us in buying adequate stock of Dalneal. Now we had when clients come in and they're for this, we're able to give them an alternative. Right, so most times we don't have our clients who are leaving because they can't get their product. We're able to explain why they won't be able to get this product, but not just telling them it's not available. We now have a good alternative for them. So this is how data has helped us drive in our everyday decision. And the good thing for us is it's not just done top line, right? We try to inculcate this behavior in every teammate. So you have sometimes when we're having our team meetings, you are hearing this pharmacist or this healthcare assistant explaining why certain decisions need to be taken, why we need to extend the budget for procuring certain things, and able to give you evidence, data-driven evidence. And like I always say, if you come with stories, I'll tell you you're giving me English. Show me the numbers. And so they have learned to show me the numbers. And once they show me the numbers, I really can't argue. I'll just say, okay, I'll go look for the money. And so that's how they've known to hits me now.
Yes, enough of English. Show me the numbers. I like that. Chima, do you have anything to say to this?
No, I don't. I mean, from Omome did justice to it with them live examples, lived examples too. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so Taufik, this one is for you. So we've been talking about data, right? Yes, data is amazing. Data is the next best thing after sliced bread and all of that. But we also know that there are some potential challenges with adopting a data-driven approach. Like off the top of my head, I know that it may not be, you are not able to make decisions as fast, right? But I know that there are others that people may encounter, everybody goes forth with this new mindset about how to optimize their data and how to leverage it. But we also want to know some challenges that they may meet just ahead. Yeah. So what are potential pitfalls or challenges that are associated with adopting a data-driven approach to decision making in healthcare sector, and how can these challenges be mitigated?
Yeah, I think it's very important we speak to that too, because in reality, computer is garbage in, garbage out. And so for me, the first thing I always like to tell people is the quality of the data and the accuracy issues. are always big deals. You can't make quality decisions if you don't have quality data. And so it means that business owners too must be intentional in the kind of investment that they are actually putting. And beyond the hardware and the software, we also need the people to be disciplined enough to ensure that the right data is actually utilized as best as possible. And that's very, very important. Then the other risk I also will easily want to talk about is the privacy and security concerns. I'm sure we've all heard in the last few weeks about how some big boys in the financial industry are being attacked. So as businesses also begins to grow and your brand visibility also increases, there is also that risk of security concerns. So it also means that we must pay attention as much as possible to data protection and all of that. Then in the industry where we are, I know one of the biggest headache is lack of standardization. We have spoken about how we can utilize data and the data fits into our inventory. We use that to actually communicate to our wholesalers, our distributors, and all of that. And I remembered a long time ago reading about what actually happened in Walmart in the early 80s, where they have a system that sinks into their suppliers base, P&G and Coca-Cola in those days. And they don't need to do anything because the systems are actually interconnected. So at that other end, they can actually see when inventory is low, it reaches a particular level, and they can actually replenish their inventory as much as. But the question again for us is, there is lack of standardization as much as possible. What you will see in my ERP, the way we are going to describe a product, for example, Augmentin, is not going to be the same way that another pharmacist is also going to define that. And it will mean that an organization like Drugstock might also have something different. So we need to begin to think at the national level, how can we begin to bring in standardization into all of that? And it will really help a lot of us. It will mean that whatever is generated from our own ERP can easily be forwarded, or we can just be a plug and play thing where things can be as seamless as possible. Then, of course, we will realize that we have insufficient analytics capabilities and expertise. That is always a big deal. I remember just 2 weeks ago in Vanguard Pharmacy, we declared an emergency. We brought our head of finance and we are saying it's important. You have to teach everyone that is involved in procurement at all levels, in procurement, come and teach them Excel at higher levels. People think they know Excel, but when they get to see what Excel alone can help them do in data analysis, people will be humbled. And we have to bring that up because we realize that some people are struggling. And so without the capabilities, people will continue to struggle. And it will be good that apart from training yourself as business owners, that training has to permeate the entire space across your people as much as possible. Then, of course, I will always say that we should not also become over-reliant on data. We should always remember that we have human beings there too that can also bring their knowledge based on the information they have and all of that. For example, pharmacists will be mentioned when Sanofi was actually leaving the country. All of that information is information that should be applicable to the data. So if you look at the data alone to make decision at that point in time, you might not get the kind of outcome that's required. And that's where we always say that the human being is there to ensure that the right information is also used to support whatever data that is available as much as possible. So yes, it's good we look at data, but when we have information, we should be able to bring that into decision making and be willing to defend and provide those information at any levels of the meeting that we might want to be as much as possible. And you know, all of that might not directly be available. Then, when we have to manage and integrate large data sets, it can be challenging. In fact, that was one major reason why we said that a lot more people in Vanguard Pharmacy must be trained in Excel, because Excel actually helps them to crunch a lot of large data as much as possible. So now to mitigate this risk so that we can be able to maximize the benefits of data analytics, I will say that for me, we have to implement a robust data governance and quality control. And that's very, very important. Maybe for smaller businesses, that might not be an issue yet, but at our own level, we're already talking about that. To be sure that the quality control issues in data, attention is actually paid into it as much as possible. It's very, very important. And it is proving like a lot of headache already. Then we have to invest in training and retraining of our people. That's the only way to actually mitigate around this risk. If you don't have well-trained people, obviously it will become a big issue. Then I think finally I will talk around culture, and I think Umi spoke to that. It's about making a culture of data-driven decision-making. And it's important. Once that becomes a culture in the business, life will be easy for everybody. And it simply means that if you can't get anything unless you've truly done your own work around what your data is saying. And like I did mention earlier, if you have additional information that is outside of the data set, bring it on to support your argument, and you can always have your way as much as possible. Then I think it's also important for us to talk around privacy and security concerns. And the only way for me is also to build a very, very strong policy. I know passwords is an issue, and depending on your levels and hierarchy in the business, you find out that you have different capabilities to be able to actually have access. And a lot of managers, supervisors still feel they can be negligent around their password. And all of that can actually leads to fraud. If someone else steals their password, they have access and they can do and undo. And I think it's important as much as possible that we pay a bit of attention into that. But overall, I would say that creating a culture where data-driven decision-making becomes a fantastic asset for the organization as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taufik. That was indeed very powerful. You know, two things you said reminded me of what happens in my company in Drugstock. So the first is the standardization thing. I remember when we were going to, deploy kilometers, I don't know how many of us here know it. And then this, what you just said, was a problem, like different people saving medications in different ways. So standardization is something that we should really talk about. And then having a data culture, my boss always says something, I can't remember, but something like, it's only Jesus Christ he believes, let everybody else bring data. So each time he says that, like, it further reminds everybody in the company that you should be looking at your data. So before you even come to him, you must have looked at your own data and then know that you're coming to present data to him. Yeah, so very, very crucial. It's something that you grow. It's not going to just come like with a snap, but it will come regardless, as long as you're emphatic and you're focused on it. Thank you very much. We are nearing the end of the webinar, and I'm just going to take one more response from from Chima, and then we will close this. So how important is it for healthcare providers to maintain, so Chima, this is for you. How important is it for healthcare providers to maintain a focus on patient-centered care amidst economic pressure? We know it's important, but now we want you to say this as, regarding how data analytics can help to further improve this experience. Do you understand the question? Yeah.
So, thank you. And for this question you asked, I mean, it's part of the answers that from Omaomi and then from Taufik had said. That they also mentioned how, they could foretell what will happen because Sanofi was leaving and they had to make provision for therapeutic substitutes. And that's to tell you that these are pharmacies that are focused on their patient care and they source alternatives. So I'd like to say from the capabilities of what some ARPs can do. So some ARPs can help you manage patients such that you even categorize them. These are diabetes care, patient that need diabetes care, patient that need hypertensive care. You can categorize them, and that way you are also collating things like some of these are patients, they don't store their BP measurements. They do it once in your place and they've forgotten. They do their sugar level, they've forgotten. For those that have scale, they do those things, they've forgotten. So those are some of the things that your digital tools should be able to collate, record. So when they are coming, you're recording such, you're recording the medicines you're selling to them. And with those data, simple as those data, you can make informed decisions, especially for chronic disease management, where you do therapeutic switches. And these therapeutic switches are things you can now monitor. So you're not doing therapeutic switch without confirming that the previous one they were using was working and this one may not be working. And we are pharmacists, we know even drugs have different components. The excipient, the binder, we know even the isomer, like the molecule, like where there's amlodipine becylate, amlodipine something, like the proper one. So when we are making those therapeutic switches, and trust me, some chronic disease patients rely on the pharmacists for care. The only time they go to hospitals for complications. So for care, because some of the visits are like 3 months interval for follow-up. So in those 3 months to 6 months, and trust me, you can have issues like out of stock because of supply chain disruption, which is something that has been happening since 2020 with the Suez Canal blockage. So when you make those switches, how do you tell that you're getting that, that positive patient outcome if it's not by having an ARP solution that can record even as much as their BP measurements without relying on them for what they measured the last time, but you have it there. So those are some of the ways you can use to measure. Having a digital tool that captures both the drugs, their refill, both their clinical parameters and such, you can make that confirm that your switches are working for them, and that's how you've impacted that patient's life positively.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Famchina. What you said reminds me of something from. So, Fammi, do you want to add to this? Because what Famchima said reminded me of something that she said earlier. So, do you want to add to this very quickly after this we round up, and then we take questions?
I actually don't have anything to add. I think you just captured it succinctly. If you have patient care if you have patient focused, right, many of the decisions you take, most times you make the right decision. Most times because whatever data-driven decision, what's the reason you're taking those decisions? And when it's patient focused, you find out that many times you tend to be on the right side of things. So I don't think I want to dilute anything Chima said.
All right, thank you. So we have a hand up. Please. Yeah, please kindly type in your question. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A section because we're taking questions now. I'm going to dive into the question and answer box, and I'm going to take questions. So if you have any question, please just go there and yes. So someone is asking, how can we get the standardization done? I think it's with respect to the parts where Farm Taufik mentioned something about how a lack of standardization affects the whole, data collection. So Farm Taufik, do you want to take this?
Yes. Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Yeah. So I think where it actually starts, investment that is done from the investment done by the organization on the kind of ARP that they're actually going to use. And I know that there are different ARPs out there in the market space, depending on the size of your business. But one primary thing is that we must remember that we must be able to know why we are doing what we want to do. And that's very, very important. We must also know the stage where our business is in terms of the volume of the data that is being generated daily, weekly, and annually. Because if we have chosen the wrong ARP, we will keep having issues of database crash every now and then. So once all of that is sorted, then we now want to agree what are the primary level of information in terms of data that we need to generate. And we know these things should be documented, and we should use it to train and retrain our people. Once we get to that level of generating the primary data, then we can even move into the level of advanced level of data. Maybe that can be for the senior players in the business. You understand? But this basic approach has to be done in order to take people from people that are not used to doing to utilize this information as much as possible. That would be my advice for the person that actually asked that question.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Pam Taufik. So Genevieve is asking, what can the implementer do? Oh, because I mentioned it. And what digital tool can you use to record patient's medicine so you can follow up? So for the digital tool, I think there are a lot of digital tools. I'll let Pam Chima, do you want to take this one? Because there's a question on implementer here.
Okay, so should I start from the work and the perimeter? So perimeter is a digital tool for pharmacy operating system for managing your inventory, financials, and also customer records. And you can use that to collate the patient medicine. So you can use that to record patient medicines and interventions, and also their diagnosis and symptoms. Those are some of the things that it can do.
Okay. The second question, what digital tool can you use to record clients? I don't know, I've lost the question.
I think that's I just answered. The digital tool captures both inventory and patient.
All right, thank you. So I think generally these days, most inventory tools are created to capture the entire detail. I don't know if Farm Taufik and Farm Me can lend their voice to this, but usually most of these tools come with all of these other features so that it's like an all-in-one thing. So any digital tool out there should be able to capture this. Do I speak for all community pharmacists from Wumi?
Okay, so I think the question is twofold. Yes, most ERPs would capture that if it's a KPI for your people on the selling floor, saying that for everybody coming in, you must get that information because there has to be an action. You won't automatically just happen. That's one. But I think the second part of the question is how do you follow up on that? Not every ERP will do that. We use a different software for the clients we need to follow up on, and majorly there are clients who are on our refill program, so we use something completely different. But yeah, most ERPs will capture the
Okay.
information.
All right, thank you very much. And so someone is saying that standardization and quality control are the data inputs, and how can we drive this in light of the different needs of the stakeholders across the value chain? So from Taufik, do you want to take this? Did I repeat the question? So standardization and quality
Yes,
control
but
are
I
the
think
data. Okay.
yes, I think I heard the question clearly. The reality is that we have different players. I know drug stock plays in that industry. I also know there are a lot of other people that are competing with them. Maybe we need a regulator that will come in. I remembered about some years past, we were talking about getting a huge ERP for the entire pharmaceutical supply chain in Nigeria. But that didn't see the light of the day. But it obviously means that we all have to keep putting our mouth out there, our voice out there as much as possible. And over time, maybe we begin to align those data using a simple code to identify a particular product or category can actually help as much as possible. But obviously, we need the political will as far as I'm concerned. Without the political will, we would not actually go out there because what we are getting is even amongst the biggest retail chains in Nigeria, we are not all using same ERP. You will find out that different people use these different things, and based on that, it's also difficult for us to actually align with the kind of nomenclature that we all use. But again, at that level of those involved in distribution, they can actually easily drive a lot of us into aligning if they are willing. Then I'm looking at the other level of, imagine that we have a huge software that anybody that's bringing anything into the country or manufacturing finished product will key into that database. It simply means that it will be easier for a lot of us at the retail end to align with such nomenclature to also build into our own ERP. And so we just need that political will. And I think with the advent of the new players coming into the space that have good funding, within the next few years, I see a lot of alignment actually happening in that space. Hello, Oye, are you there?
Yes, I was on mute. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you, from Taufik. So we are really being told to wrap up as fast as possible. So we are going to, like, in less than 3 minutes we'll be done. But I think I just want to take one more question. And I can see that some hands are still raised. So okay, before I attend to that, somebody was asking earlier about Pareto's principle, how, what you meant about 20% and all of that. So from Taufik, do you want to talk about that?
Yes.
And then, okay, just in
and then what? And then what?
In a minute. And then someone else is asking for the recording. Yes, we are going to send the recordings to you, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. So quickly on Pareto's principle, that's a principle that we have shown to be consistent over and over and over and over again. It simply means that whatever you are doing, 20% of that population is actually contributing about 80% of the outcome that you are actually going to get. And so in inventory and sales, what that principle is saying is that if your revenue is 100, 20% of your product line will generate for you 80% of the revenue that is required. And so all you need to do is to track those 20% products that are giving you 80% of your revenue and pay attention to them. And you remember, Famumi said such products are products that should never go out of stock in your business for any reason. If they are now no longer available, like augmenting was not available in some period last year, then you have to be handy with an alternative, and your team must be well trained to be able to justify to anybody that's coming in to know the reason why they won't get augmenting, but they will get alternative. And that is how to actually use Pareto's principle. And you know, it could mean, it might not mean exactly 80%, but it could range between 75 and 85, even at times 90%. But paying attention into those data. So there's the assignment I will give the person that actually asked that question is go and look at your sales in the month that ended, April, and go and accumulate the product that contributed to that total revenue and see what it will amount to in terms of percentile. And if you can check that, I can guarantee that it will vary depending on what you want, between 65 to almost 85%.
Okay, thank you, Council. So let me take this question. As a new and small business, limited by staff count, a lot of metrics have been mentioned. Please, which metric should I focus on most at this point as a new and small business? Famumi, do you want to take this?
Interesting question. I would say, first and foremost, start with your, of course, you want to look at your, first and foremost, start with your budget. That's actually the first place you want to start. There's a popular tool we advise retail pharmacists to use. It's called the Rebecca tool. So it helps you know how much you must generate to be profitable, right? It helps you decide if you are even breaking even or you're running at a loss. So that would be the first thing I'll say you want to start. Now with the Rebecca tool, it tells you how much based on your costs. And what are the costs? Your rent, your salaries, registration, everything you are going to spend in your business. So you have this one store. Think of your annual costs, right? You may not have everything to the exact number, but give estimates. How much are you going to spend on fuel, on diesel, on light? And then you put it on that tool. It will help you know what you should sell daily, weekly, monthly, and of course, at the end of the year to break even. And then based on that, you can now decide this is going to be my target. I usually say that, yes, we are community pharmacists, but I call us retail pharmacists because you're running a business. So you want to know what should be your target. Now, based on that, you're tracking your revenue. How much am I making vis-a-vis the target, right? Are you hitting your target? Are you far from it? If you're far from it, what do you need to do? What are the decisions you need to take? What are those inventories you need to stock? How do your people need to communicate? So you want to start with that. And of course, you want to check how much of what's my bill, what's my regular, and you have this in your budget. If I'm supposed to spend 100,000 monthly, right? Is my gross profit generating up to 100,000? If it's not, how do you increase your gross profit? Two ways. You're either increasing your revenue or you're reducing your cost. So those are some decisions you take. So I'll say, let's start with these basics. Start with your budget, use the Rebecca tool, track your revenue, track your gross profits. And then once you start that, you're at least on the right track. And then the others can come in. I hope this helps.
Thank you, Famumi.
Seems to be frozen. Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you, Famumi. I hope that answered the question to the person who asked. And then this is the last question that we are taking. And then I assure you that any other questions will be replied on the, directly. I think we'll just do that for the sake of time, please. So any practical tips on measuring footfall? I have challenges getting patients to give data in the time spent in the store. So I think Famchima, you mentioned footfall. So the question is,
can I explain what we do?
Okay, yes, Famumi, please go on.
So we have a very cheap way of doing it. For many retail stores, you have people who man your doors, your security personnel. So what we do is every day we have I will track it for the during the day. So you have the hours 9 to 10, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. Now what the security are supposed to do is for every person that comes into the store, you put a tally. You know, remember that tally system, 11111. At the end of that hour, he totals it. So at the end of the day, the manager or whoever collects that notebook and then tracks it. So that's one cheap way of tracking the people who come into your store, because we realize that if you use just the software, your software will only track those who are buying, but it doesn't tell you the lost sales, right? There are some people who may come into your store and don't have what you need. So that's one cheap way. There are some companies that have food counters. That's a bit expensive, but if you're able to invest in that, that's another thing. But this is what we do at EXA.
Great, thank you.
And you said, sorry,
Yeah, from Taufik, please go on.
and that is what I will encourage a lot of small brands to actually do. As much as possible, they can also invest in technology that can actually help do footfall counts. But for businesses that are not too busy, they can use as simple as that, take a tally and you can get your data on every hour, and that's fine. And that's actually very, very fine. Yeah.
We have to make a hard stop at this point. From Taufik, there is a popular demand for a session on budgeting. This is not me, this is everybody on the call. About 3 people have asked for budgeting now. So I'm thinking that our next session will be on budgeting, and from Taufik will be calling you back to come and say something on budgeting.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's actually an interesting one, and it's something that every business owner should actually understand, really.
All right, so everyone on the call. Okay, so everyone on the call, we are going to have a session on budgeting. Farm Taufik has kindly agreed to come back on and, do justice to that topic. I understand why we need this, right? So we are going to have a session on that. We are going to send recordings for all who have asked. We are going to send recordings of this session to everybody, and please take time, listen to it again and again. Is Drugstock a drug distribution company? Yes, Drugstock is a drug distribution company. And for the person who joined late, we are going to send you the recording, and all questions will be answered. There are a lot of them. I just keep scrolling. All right, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining this call. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, this is just a Drugstock learning platform. One of the ways that we reach out to healthcare providers, particularly our clients, so that we are also enriching your businesses in other ways, because all of these conversations and discussions help you to gain new skills and new knowledge to grow your businesses the way that you expect to. And we'll be closing the webinar now. Again, thank you for joining in. It's been an amazing session. I have felt I'm empowered as I am like this. And so I can imagine how everyone else on the call feels. Please do well to, I don't know if the poll is still live. Please fill the poll, fill the survey. At the end of this, we are probably going to send something on your thoughts on the session and how you want us to, what you want to see going forward, just to get feedback. Please just put everything on that survey link, and we'll be happy to hear from you and get data. This is also data for us so that we can improve the sessions as we go on. Thank you so much for joining in and for staying to the end of the session. We appreciate it. We appreciate your patience and your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Every day, Nigerians are struggling to find easy access to life-saving medication. We are here to change that. Drugstock is the leading pharmaceutical distribution company in Nigeria, and we are proud of the changes we have made. We have streamlined the logistics required to fulfill the needs of over 3,000 medical institutions like pharmacies and hospitals. We provide healthcare facilities with end-to-end procurement solutions. Drugstock is a one-stop solution for all your medical needs with state-of-the-art technology. dedicated Drugstock app keeps us connected to healthcare providers with all you need at the edge of your fingertips, allowing you to procure all your pharmaceuticals and medical products in one place. With the support of our talented and dedicated staff of managers, tech experts, drivers, and healthcare professionals, we continue our holistic approach of breaking boundaries with our distribution chain. The days of complicated searches and outrageous prices for pharmaceuticals in Africa are over, but we can't stop there. Drugstock continues to grow with several innovative technologies in the pipeline. We are spearheading the advancement of pharmaceutical cold chain storage and distribution in Nigeria. Our ultra-modern cold chain logistics system allows our client to track all cold chain orders and monitor temperatures in real time. Our multifunctional inventory tool, Pilometer, is an easy-to-use inventory management system for new and existing pharmacies. Our payment solutions, Drugstock Pay, offers healthcare providers flexible financing for all their procurement needs. At Drugstock, we value the positive impact we have on our society, and we believe in the future of Africa. We are honored to build it.